It's an advanced practice. All right, so welcome back. Just take a moment and just come back to your body. I mean, you don't have to even change your posture, but just notice how it feels now compared. It's interesting, like we sat and then we got up and there was a little activity. And just come back, notice how your body is now, how your energy is now. And how is it to be now? So, we kind of posed this question before we started. What you had said was this, the freedom to just be. And how nice it would be, like, hey, can I just be? And it's crazy how it's almost like asking too much. Like, wait, did I at some point forfeit my right to just be? Is that asking too much? And then what we see is that when we attempt to do that, like a lot of things get in the way. And we just tried it, right? We just sat there and the instruction was like, well, great, just sit here. I mean, we do this thing with the breath to kind of help us. But really it's just, well, can I just sit here? And it's phenomenally challenging. And so I'm always curious, like, well, why not? Like, I watch my cat do it all fucking day long. Just chilling, just. And I've talked about it in here before. I mean, there's other reasons, but one of the main things she's not hooked on, that many of us are hooked on, is she apparently doesn't feel the need for self-improvement. She's totally cool with exactly how she is. I like to joke, like, what if she was sitting there, she's like, if only I was fluffier. Maybe I should work on that. But whatever is happening for her is just what's happening for her. It doesn't...
I'm just going to comment, you brought your cat up many times.
Yes.
And my cats are not like that. Maybe it's being a cat of a meditation teacher. They're perpetually unhappy. They want in, they want out, they're not happy with the help. Pretty constant thing around my house, though.
Right. But here's the part that's funny, is they don't feel bad about any of that. Like, yes, they're like that, but they're okay with being like that. Right? There's no part of them that's like, well, I need to get over this. I need to make up my mind. I'm just so indecisive. So their thing is like, I mean, they don't even think this, but they might be like, yeah, that dude seems to be unhappy with us, but I don't know what his problem is. We're just doing what we do. Maybe they're like, he should meditate more. Yeah. But thank you. I've had various cats over the years, and I learned a lot from them in that they got that being thing really down, right? Or all animals, like they're just being. And so I look at, well, what's distracting me? What's making it difficult to be? What's the problem exactly? And so I'm curious. So, like, what are some of the problems? Like, what did some of you encounter? You try to sit there and it's just doesn't quite work.
So I had an experience that I haven't had before tonight. I spent my whole day mushroom hunting in the woods by myself, and it was awesome. I was super present, and I found like the mother lode. And I'm here, and I'm also very present, but I kept having visuals of the forest and the mushrooms. Mm-hmm.
What kind of mushrooms did you? No, I'm just kidding. Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I mean, like this
Yeah,
orange color.
yeah.
I've seen them in my eyes, and it wasn't that I had like an emotional response, but that seemed distracting.
Now check this out. So what was it? It was distracting?
Yeah, kind of. And I got curious and kind of like went into it a little bit to see if there was something else there, but I'd come back to the breath and then just sort of kind of keep coming up.
So that's a very normal thing. They call that regurgitation. It's like the senses just will do that. Like if you do something all day, you close your eyes and then it's exactly like that. And you see that phenomenon with other things. Like you ever go on a long road trip and then like you go to bed at the end of the road trip and you see the road. Do you see any traces? Just kidding. Some people will get that joke and some people won't. But check this out. Here's the thing. So in your being, that's just what was happening. And notice if there's some part of you that kind of felt like that, I don't know, that it was wrong or kind of distracting or shouldn't be happening, like it's kind of a pain in the ass or whatever. But some part of us has some experience and then says, this isn't the right thing. Or like, I wish this would stop. So I suggest to you that what was distracting you was not those visuals, but the kind of aversion to them or the kind of conflict with them. Like to whatever extent it felt like it would be better if that wasn't happening. And that aversion is the thing that causes the conflict. Like if you were a cat and you had those visuals, you'd just be like, cool. Apparently mushroom visuals are what's happening now. Yeah. So that's the thing. These are ways that we want to watch for all these ways that we're in conflict with reality. It's the wildest thing we do as humans. We're just like in conflict with reality, like a lot. Right?
Can you say a little bit about the difference between not being in conflict with reality and just mindlessness, right? Like just being like, oh yeah, I don't meditate anymore because whatever, right? Like mushroom visuals, I get swept up, I get distracted, right? And like...
Right. I think the question is like, with what, like is one at peace with it? Or is one, when you're getting swept up or kind of whatever, a lot of times underneath it, it's not peace. It's actually pretty deliberate avoidance. And you can just feel it in your being, like this isn't acceptance, this is avoidance, right? And getting, it's funny, being swept up is a funny thing. Like when you know you're swept up, you're kind of not actually all that swept up anymore. Like the moment you know it. So there is still I find that with peace, the wakefulness actually increases. Like when I'm fairly peaceful, like sometimes it's like the breath is just there. I have these sometimes like, how could I lose this? It's just so there. It's such a blatant experience when I'm not distracted by other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Hold on, let me get a couple other people. Yeah. Yeah.
So the cat is an interesting example. Some cats have a scratch and an itch. They scratch, and I experience a lot of like transient itching when I'm meditating. It's just weird and interesting.
In your body.
Yeah, and so I definitely don't scratch.
Right.
And it goes away,
Yeah.
And tonight, like I have this completely new experience of an itch that like became this spot and it turned colors and it was just very intense.
Did you go mushroom hunting earlier today?
But it was just like it became, I didn't feel the sense of wanting to scratch it. I got really, I was very interested in
That's great.
experience, and it turned, like I didn't feel the aversion, which I
Right.
think is the normal, like the aversion, like the compulsion to make it stop.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And what you're seeing there is actually very important, which is the impermanence of all things. The Buddha was really big on this. Was that seeing how everything has a natural beginning, middle, and end. And you know, in the Four Noble Truths, the third noble truth is cessation. This truth of cessation is very profound. It kind of sounds like obvious, but when you really think about what he's saying that everything ceases. Everything eventually runs its own course. And with itches is a great little mini example of that. When you're sitting, if you don't scratch and you just let it be there, eventually it just kind of runs its own course. Mm-hmm. And that's actually true for, well, ultimately everything.
Pain.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know, in one's experience it may be a while, but theoretically, everything's impermanent. But that's a really great thing to see, to actually trust that, right? Because that's a pretty radical thing for most people to just say, hey, if you don't scratch that itch, it'll just go away. And, in that itch, we can use that metaphorically. I mean, there's many itches that will go away of their own accord. So that's great. And what I'm hearing you say, and this is such a big part of what we're talking about, which is you said something really, really good, which is, I forgot how you phrased it, but it's basically sort of not freaking out about your own experience. Like you're having this experience and you're just okay with it. Like you're just allowing it. And I feel like one of the biggest things, like with my students and clients, that I hear over and over, and I know this for myself well too, is that we get so upset about our own experience. You know what I mean? As humans, it's another interesting thing. Like we'll feel something or have some experience, and then there's all these layers of meanings that are often much more upsetting than the actual experience. Where the experience means something. It's like, oh, I'll catch it. With physical pain, like when we sat in the beginning, I felt a little numbness in my foot, and I noticed for a minute, it's like, oh my God, what's wrong with my foot? And it's got this kind of oh my God, and this is kind of oh, and it's like, dude, it's just sensation in your foot. There's nothing to get excited about. But we get really. You ever get upset about being upset? Especially as meditators, right? To get upset is such a failure of practice, or so we think. I don't know where we got that idea, but we get that idea, right? And so it's you're upset, but then there's oh, I can't believe that upset me. Now I'm actually really upset about being upset. And then if you're a meditator, you might see that, and then you'll be oh, then you're going to get upset about being upset that you're upset. Yeah? And I watch a lot of times, I'm talking to people, and they describe what's happening for them, and my genuine feeling at this point, I'm yeah, totally, I get it, yes. But to them, it's no, but this sucks, and I suck, and how do we fix it? I'm it's just, this is what's happening. I don't know. Why is this such a problem? And so we're sort of often scared of ourselves. We're scared and sort of put off by what's going on inside us. And it's interesting. I've been practicing for, I don't know, about 20 years now, a little more even. And I think back to what's changed over the years. And it's funny because in some ways all the things I wanted to fix and change haven't changed for shit. But the good news is I just no longer feel like that needs to be changed. I don't actually, all these things that I went to battle with that I was ooh, I got to meditate because I got to fix all these things. What changed isn't actually those things as much as this whole idea that all that stuff has to change and that that's wrong, or I'm like, some horrible person because I have these experiences. That all went away. And what's cool is that all that other stuff that I thought was so horrible, it's not. I mean, the only reason it was a problem was because I deeply thought it was. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, man, those were just totally normal human experiences. I just had a phenomenal amount of judgment about all of it, which made me miserable. And now it just seems pretty normal. It's like, well, whatever, it's just a sensation or a feeling. Like earlier today, this afternoon, I got really sad all of a sudden. And I'm not even sure why. Like, I could say maybe a few things about why, but it doesn't even seem important to me. It was just like, I don't know, just got kind of sad. It was kind of nice. I don't know, like it wasn't, I didn't have a conflict with it. It's like weather, I don't know. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's sunny. But it's not, we take ourselves very personally. Right? I mean, it may sound funny, but like, we take ourselves very personally. It's like every little thing is like, what does that say about me? What does that mean about me? And what's funny, like nothing. It's just something that's happening. And I remember, because the reason I bring it up is because I was talking to someone else, and then I remember, I was like, wow, this would have freaked me out before. I would have been like, oh my God, what's wrong? Why am I sad? Like, fuck. Like, I mean, it would have had all this meaning that would have been upsetting. And I would have had to try to fix it, and then I couldn't fix it, and then, I don't know if this is true for everyone. I knew, when I look back on it now, I didn't realize it at the time, but when I look back about it now, and I don't know if this is, I don't know, well, we'll see. I realize now a lot of stuff was also would always come back to this question of whether that meant I was attractive or lovable in some way. And like whether it bode well for like, is this the kind of person I want to be? Is this the kind of person that like people would like, or is this cool or not? And so that would be one of the biggest things I would take personally about whatever I was experiencing. Like, is that a cool thing to be experiencing, or is that, and there's this like, I feel like, I don't know if it's still as prevalent, but I felt like there was a time where like being happy was, is it still like that? Like, it's very cool to be happy. And if you're not happy, it's kind of like not so cool. And like in advertising, it's always like these happy people using these products. And somehow like being happy is somehow like so revered in our culture. It's not like that in other cultures. Like, I'm from Russia originally, and I don't know about now, but traditionally in Russian culture, like, happy people were thought of as kind of stupid. Now, this is very Russian, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not saying their perspective is right. But if you were just kind of really happy, the people would be like, he's just simple, like, like he doesn't get it. So it wasn't a particularly flattering thing. It seemed like, well, that person's just kind of superficial. And if you were sad, that actually meant you were deep. I mean, I don't think it actually means that either. But it was just funny that different cultures have different, different standards. So that would be this twist that would always like infiltrate a lot of my experiences, was this question of like is this attractive or not to feel this, or is it cool or not? And I remember when I first got into Buddhism, after a while, all these experiences all said something about how good a Buddhist I was or not. So if you have like a deep meditation, that, like, I was actually, it's interesting, I don't know if people were just shy and didn't want to admit it, but when I asked why people come, nobody said that they're trying to get enlightened. And is that true? Because I definitely was trying to get enlightened when I started, right?
Why did you tell us after?
You could have gotten enlightened. You missed out. Yeah. But I realized that in my mind at the time, it's funny, because when I think back, it's like, when I would think about what it would mean to be enlightened, it was some kind of more sophisticated spiritual substitute for like being a rock star or something. It was like, well, no, I'll be enlightened. I'll be really super cool. Like talk about attractive, right? I mean, come on. It's like, put that in your dating profile. Like, I'm enlightened. What's that? It's a red flag, yeah. But it was definitely that. It was always how somehow I would become something that was like better than what I am now. And you can fill in the blanks. I mean, whatever your version of that is, like whatever you think that is. But it was, at its core, it was always like some reason why this, like just this now isn't right, isn't enough, isn't, like there's some better experience to be sought. There's some, better way of being, better, just better. That's what it is. It's just endless betterness, right? And sometimes it gets ridiculous because you get to this point where you're like, I don't even know what it is, but this isn't it. Like I know I want it. I'm looking for it. And again, it would get so vague after a while, like, well, what are we even talking about? Like, I don't know, but just not this. And it makes it very hard to be present. Like if we're in conflict with what's happening all the time, and then we're like, okay, well, let's just be here. It's like, holy shit, like, but that means I got to go to war with my experience. Like I got to go to war with myself all the time. And for a long time, the hope was that, well, I'll win the war. Right? Like I'll practice really hard, I'll try really hard, I'll meditate all the time, and eventually I'll win the war. And then, after many years, it's just like, you just don't. The war gets worse and worse. And in a way, if you're lucky, you get your ass so thoroughly kicked by that war that you just give up. And that you just say, I don't want to be at war anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. Because the thing about being at war with yourself is like you always lose. Like you can't really win that war. And regardless of which side wins or loses, the problem is the war is taking place here. It's like, I don't know, it's like from the point of view, it's kind of a weird analogy, but from the point of view of the Earth, like the planet, and then you got all these people on it and they're fighting. Like, does the planet really give a fuck about who wins or loses? Like the planet's like, ouch, you guys are blowing up bombs on me, I don't really care what side you're all on, but the fighting itself is painful. And so that's what's happening. It's like, well, the war is taking place in this body, in this being, and I have to endure that, regardless of what fucking side I'm on. And so we can get to this point where we just, enough. There's so much fucking fighting already happening around us. It it's like, can I at least, people talk about safe spaces now. Can just this fucking thing be a safe space? Just for me. Like when I'm home alone by myself, can my mind be a safe space? And so we want to start seeing the way we're doing battle with ourselves. Actually owning that, like, holy shit, yeah, I'm at war with myself. I'm at war with this moment. I'm at war with these thoughts or these feelings or that sensation. And what would it mean to take a vow of nonviolence with just yourself? It's kind of nice that this has come up because it's Martin Luther King Day, right? And it was all about nonviolence. And it's like putting a Buddhist twist on it, like, well, what about nonviolence with just our own selves? As you sit, sometimes you can really just feel the pain of that inner violence. Without figuring it out or analyzing or figuring out who's right or wrong. It is like, ow. Wow, this is really tight and constrained and constricted and I used to have this girlfriend, every once in a while she'd be like, ooh. I'm like, what happened? She's like, I just hurt my own feelings. And it was deep. I'd be like, really? She's like, yeah, I just thought this very critical thing of myself. But she would feel the way it hurt her. And I remember learning from that. I was like, oh, that's kind of, I got it after a while. I was like, all right. So whatever you're fighting yourself on, I really invite you to stop. It's just not worth it. And I know sometimes it feels like, no, I'm just going to fight more. I've never seen that. I've never seen someone win that battle.
It's a scam.
It's a scam, right? It's funny. The analogy holds true. Because I was just thinking, how, there's a lot of people I would agree with this, that one of the reasons we fight so much in this world is because the arms race is very lucrative, right?
That's right.
And there's almost like an internal parallel to that we've all bought into. This kind of like, yeah, I need to improve, I need to become better, I need to, somehow reject this and go for something better. It's just an inherently violent thing. And when you can put that down and just let yourself be exactly as you are, really, with all the flaws and all the things that you think are wrong with you, all of that. Because they're not. You're just a person. We're all just people. And we have ideas. Someone taught us, well, that's not right, and that's not cool, or that's not attractive, or some nonsense. But like you said, it's a scam. And the alternative, which is to just be here and just to allow. I like the word accept. I've used that, but lately I've been really into this word allow. It's a little different than accept. It's just this is just what's happening. I don't know, it's just this is what's happening now. And to have the it's funny because we talk about diversity a lot these days. But what about internal diversity? It gets really narrow, like the experiences you're allowed to have, or feelings you're allowed to feel, or thoughts you're allowed to have. That's bullshit. It's internal diversity. You can have all kinds of experiences. You can get sad, you can get scared, you can get happy, you can get grateful. Weird sensations arise. Visuals of what happened earlier, or itches that go psychedelic on you. It's great. It's really great. And if you spend some time, We'll stop in just a second. Just allowing the experience to be. And see if you can just, if you kind of stay a little on the calm side, to kind of not get scared of your own experience. Just kind of stay with it and allow it, just to kind of watch these things come and go. I used to say to myself, so I used to like make up these little ways of remembering, and I'd say like, you know, being scared is nothing to be scared of. Or like being angry is nothing to be angry about. You know what I mean? And so what you find is that you can really cultivate this capacity that's really just like making room. It's just making the space broader. So whatever arises in you just has some room to move around. Maybe it's grief, jealousy, aversion. A few good ones occasionally come through. You know what I mean? Is this making sense? All right, real quick, we're out of time.
Yeah, okay, I'll try and be quick. So, I guess the way I frame it in my head is that sometimes the internal struggle can be productive. So can you really, you don't think that it can ever be like a good thing to not be content with what's happening like exactly right now?
It depends. It depends if it's sort of self-abusive or not. It's different to say, hey, like I'm not content with this, and I'm going to think of some creative ways to deal with this.
Right.
That's different than, I'm talking about the more kind of like, no, I suck because of this. Or this is like, what you're talking about, that kind of creative like thing you're talking about, there's actually a step in there where you have deep acceptance that it's happening. You see what I mean? If you go slow, there's kind of like, oh wow, I really accept that this is happening. I would like to change it, and I'm going to come up with some creative way of doing that. But like to first do that, to even think about it, is actually acceptance, where you see it and you're like, oh yeah, I'm talking about this more immediate struggle against the experience, like this shouldn't even be happening. I shouldn't even be feeling that. You know what I mean?
Also the difference of like something you can't change. Right. And not so productive to want to change.
Well, in that case, you may feel like, oh wow, I really want to change that. And so that desire is just what's happening now. You know, whether you can or can't. It's what I'm talking about is a little more immediate in the experience. I'm actually really bummed. We're like way past 9 o'clock, and that's it. Like I wish I could have more time, and I can't. And so we're just going to accept that. Let's see. Well, we already did announcements. Lastly, one last thing is we have this Dharma basket. Dharma is the Buddhist word for generosity. And just want to say, I really appreciate this whole center is run strictly on donations. It's literally what keeps the lights on, what keeps this room available. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of your support and the Sangha's support, that we can all have this space to come together and practice together. So just to wrap it up, bring your awareness back to your body. And again, just allow it to be exactly as it is. May the merit generated by us coming together like this, as a Sangha, as a community, to support each other's practice, supporting each other's courage to be real and be with ourselves exactly as we are. to help us see the scam that the scam of thinking that this moment here isn't somehow enough. We dedicate and share this merit with beings everywhere. May we all be free. Thank you very much.